Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering the Decent Christian Talk podcast. Enjoy.
Decent Christian Talk, episode 25. And ladies and gentlemen, it is Thanksgiving week, Turkey week. The holidays are upon us. It's hard to believe that 2016 is winding down. What a year it's been. Thank you guys so much for listening throughout this year. It's been so fun to get to know some of you guys and just along for the ride. It's been a lot of fun. Hey, we're talking about Thanksgiving. I'm definitely thankful for you guys, and thank you for continuing to listen over the course of this year. But we're gonna get right down to it. This podcast is with Wolves at the Gate. They just released a new record a couple of weeks ago called Types and Shadows. It is a very good album. I mean, let me tell you guys, I'll be honest, I'm not a big metal fan. But over the course, I mean, compared to maybe my brothers or so, but I love this album. It's really good. I kind of got hooked on their second album as far as them as a band, and this is their third album, and they just continue to put out good music. So this is my conversation with Wolves at the Gate. It's Stephen Cobucci.
All right, hit that horn, babe. Let's dance.
First of all, hey man, thank you so much for your time. I know you have a new record out called Types and Shadows. It's your third album on Solid State. What is something on this record that I read? You know, I read that this was an album that was trying to create space for each other, and I just wondered what your thoughts on that was.
Yeah, well, a lot of that was in regards to musically. Because I think sometimes when you play like heavier music or more aggressive music, it sounds like everything's always fighting for attention all the time, and it's actually hard to listen to after a while. And with that, for us, we really want to be aggressive when it makes sense. We want to also be able to spread things out and give the listener something different to listen to, where maybe a bass line is getting highlighted, or like everything's pretty stripped down and you're focusing on the vocals, or it's more so about the drum beat, just letting it sit there. So that was something we really tried to do on this new record, musically.
Now, for that to happen, I mean, you guys really have to trust each other as a band and really kind of set your egos aside. How long have you guys all known each other, and what was that like what's that story about Wolves of the Gate forming as a band?
Well, Wolves of the Gate formed around 2008, and Ben, our bassist, and I are actually the only two original members. Mm-hmm. But we've had some member changes over the years, but it's pretty much stayed Ben, Nick, and myself ever since we've been signed to Solid State. And our drummer, Abishai, he's fairly new, but when I say fairly new, he's actually been with us for about 2 years now, but we've known him for 4 years probably. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know, the big thing is we're a band. I know you're talking about egos. We're together making music. It's really important to understand that music isn't made without each other, and that you don't always know what's best, even for your own instrument, for that case. So that for us, like, our goals, we want to make great music, and thankfully nobody's egos get in the way to the point that, you know, they're going to fight for something that's not as good as what our best is. And so thankfully we've all collectively come into that place. And, you know, sometimes you disagree on certain things, but we've been pretty good at, like, coming to what we would say is a good general consensus. And we want, you know, I don't want anything in the songs that would make anybody else in the band go like, oh, I don't like that. Like, you know, so we will work things out until everyone's down.
Nice. So what kind of, like, what background do you have, like, listening to music and then also learning to make the decision to play? What's that background?
Musically, man, it's all over the place. You know, some of my favorite bands growing up were like Brand New, Thrice, Thursday, Blindside, The Receiving End of Sirens. You know, even like early on, like POD and Linkin Park. You know, those were like some of the bands that first got me into like music that was like heavier and had some kind of like edge to it. But yeah, like, I mean, Jimmy Eat World, you know, so many different types of bands that I was into, you know, and the decision to play music, man, that kind of took me by surprise. Like, I've always loved playing, but it's, you know, it's one of those things that, like, anybody that plays, like, in the back of your head, you think like, yeah, it'd be awesome to play, but neither myself or Ben were those guys that was like, that's what we'd set out to do in life. You know, we both went to college and got degrees. And then once we graduated, that's when the band actually kind of took off. And we weren't really like planning it that way. It just kind of happened that way, per se. So it was kind of, I don't even know if you could call it a plan B. It was just kind of like a plan X. We were not anticipating working out, but it did. So we were very thankful for that.
What's your degree in?
Mine is in history education.
Nice.
I was certified to teach high school history and did that for, you know, a short while. And Ben's degree is in business marketing.
I am also a fellow history major, so I feel your intelligence coming through the phone right now. So, by the way, what did you think of the Jimmy Eat World album, the new one?
Oh, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, they're like one of those bands where, like, they'd have to try to make a bad record.
Right.
It's so cool. It's so cool for me to listen to a band that I remember listening to that, like, got me into music kind of off the beaten path that still makes great records. You know, like, I remember being excited about the first time I heard, like, Sweetness, you know, or The Middle. Right. And going like, man, this is a really cool band. And I still, like, to this day, like, man, it's a really cool song. You know, like, yeah, like their new single, Sure and Certain, you know, it's just great musicians. You know, it's so cool. And I'm glad to see them, you know, able to just keep putting out records and getting to do that for a living. So it's cool.
Definitely. Going back to the album, I got to listen to it over the weekend, and it's almost, I wouldn't call it a concept record, but it kind of is, because a lot of songs are kind of written from the first person narrative, kind of in a story form. What was that songwriting process like? And I mean, was that planned, or did that just kind of happen organically?
A little bit of both. You know, I realized after 5x5 that that's like one of my favorite ways to write lyrics. And I feel it's also one of the most effective ways that I've seen for us to communicate any sort of message. And so it was definitely the most fun I've ever had writing lyrics too, because, just the idea of the story and the pictures and imagery and, you know, it definitely took a lot more time. You know, this is probably the longest it ever took me to write lyrics. But I definitely feel the most confident in them after the fact, you know, and it was a lot of fun for my wife and I actually to do that together. Cause, you know, I would either like pitch ideas to her about I let her just hear just the music and say, do you think that this kind of story fits this song? And then, if she kind of gave me the thumbs up, I would move forward from there. And then, one of the things we did together was, basically I would like kind of map out the story to her, and I'd say, okay, well, what's missing, or is there too much, and it was a lot of fun to do that together because she's like a really good editor basically, and she's creative. So that was like kind of fun to do that with my wife, because I'm always like by myself, like before I was married, like in my apartment, just struggling through writing lyrics and like trying to bounce ideas off of other people was difficult because my wife knows me so well, and she knows the way I think, and she knows what I want the end product to be as well. So, I mean, it's just like, writing a story with your best friend, so it was a lot of fun.
And there's something to that whole, the story form of telling, because, I mean, that's what Jesus did with his followers and with,
right,
while he was on earth, was telling stories allegorically that meant something. So did you keep that in the back of your mind? Is that a reason why you kind of wanted to go down that road?
Definitely. While I would never parallel mine to the inspired word of God,
right.
But definitely, because think about it, it's so funny. I could sit down with somebody and try and convince them to believe a certain doctrine or something that, for that matter, or whatever it is, or a piece of theology, and they'll be less likely to believe it because they've already got their own worldview figured out. Most of the time, it's very difficult for people's minds to change unless, especially if God does that work, but the thing that's so interesting is I found with my interactions with people on the road, having toured for like 4 years, you talk to so many people. I use parables so often in talking to people because it's so easy to look at someone else, like, because there's always a character in like some of these parables or in these stories or these snapshots in the Gospels where they will agree with everything that's going on, but as soon as like you get them to agree with it, when you reveal it's like that's a picture of all of us, you basically like get them to agree with something they probably wouldn't have agreed with if they just taken it at face value. And that's kind of our hope, was for people to just read these songs and these stories and really see the truth in it, but then also realize it's the truth about all of us, or they'll see a truth and they think that it's beautiful and then realize that's the gospel. Because it blows my mind how often I'll interact with people, on the road and stuff like that, and you break down what the gospel actually is, and people are like, oh, that's the gospel? I said, yeah. And they're like, wow, I've never heard anything like that before, or I've never heard that before. And and even I'd say 50% of the time it's from people who profess to be Christians. And so we just have such an awesome opportunity, and we're very thankful for that, and we're hoping that these songs can serve that purpose to help people see the truth.
Very cool. So I'm going to be honest with you. I really loved 5x5. That kind of is what got me hooked on the band. When I saw you guys were putting out an acoustic EP, the Reprise EP, I kind of didn't even pay attention to it because, I've heard a bunch of bands of your genre put out acoustic EPs, and it just didn't mean it. Like, it just seemed like a regurgitation of the songs in an acoustic form. But the way that you guys made this EP, I finally got to listen to it after people coaxed me into it, just absolutely blew me away, because you guys just completely stripped down and remade these songs into a completely different genre that someone that might even not listen to Wolves at the Gate as a metal band could listen to this kind of apart from that and enjoy these acoustic parts. I mean, how much of a challenge was that to just kind of remake it in that form? Because I was so impressed with the way you guys did that.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some challenges, and I think the big challenge was like exactly what you said, is it was in stripping things down and that was the goal. Is we wanted to be minimalist, but we also didn't want to be like a reductionist in a negative sense, to where like you're like you said, it's just kind of like a regurgitation. We wanted to. That's why it's called Reprise. You know,
right?
That's exactly why we titled it that. And so it actually wasn't hard for some of the songs because they started on the acoustic, and so really it was just coming down to figuring out the instrumentation of how we want to make it sound. And that was more so the challenge, because we wanted each song to really have a feel for like that fit, the content in its own way, and so that was a lot of fun to do that. And it was great because Abishai was in the band at that point, and he was some really great input and insight. He's our drummer on helping me kind of arrange that and organize that as well. So especially with the percussive elements, because I think that's a pretty like standout aspect of that EP. So,
are you guys planning on doing that again down the road?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like hard not to, because I feel like doing acoustic songs is such a pure way for people to enjoy what the song really is at the end of the day, and it's cool. Like, I've always enjoyed when bands do that, because I almost enjoy it more because you're just hearing the song purely for what it is, and you're just like, man, that is just really a good song. And I know there's people that are into our music that just like they're not like into really heavy music, or they just want to be able to play it acoustic at home. Like, so there's lots of different purposes it serves, and we would definitely love to do that for some of the tracks in the new record. And yeah, we'll see what happens with all that.
Do you guys have tour plans for this new album?
Not for this year, unfortunately, but fortunately for me, my wife and I just had twins.
Oh, wow.
A month ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and so yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we've kind of got our hands full. We're playing man-to-man defense with these little ones and doing our best to feed and burp and change them and keep them happy. And also, because for one, I couldn't really imagine, leaving my wife at home with two newborns and saying, hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 months. And also, I can't imagine not getting to hang out with the two people I've been dying to meet for 9 months. So, so it's, everyone's been cool with that, and I'm sure any of our fans will understand. But we're not going away. That's like the big thing I would say to anybody, and so it's just, stuff that happens in life. And my first responsibility is to be a husband and now also to be a father. And we're going to do our best to just keep interacting with fans, and we're still going to get out there and play shows. It's just going to look a little different for this time period that my children are small and not able to feed themselves. So,
yeah, my wife and I, we have he's almost 1.5 years old, and it's a 2-person job. I mean, it really is. And I can't imagine twins.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and for us, we don't really know anything different. We had 0 kids, and then we came home, we had 2.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, this is all we know, So it's not really that bad. Everybody thinks like, oh man, your life's over. It's like, I feel like your life's over because you didn't get twins. We hit the jackpot. We got a boy and a girl. Like,
wow.
We just feel really blessed, and my wife's handling it really well, because it's tough. It's a tough job. She has probably one of the hardest jobs I've seen in a while, so it's cool.
Do you have anything else you would like to say about the new album before we go?
No, I mean, I would just encourage people, if they're into it, I know Spotify is like a big thing people are into, but if you want to support the band, the best way you can actually do that is to buy the record this first week. And I know you pay. I know people pay for Spotify, and you can get into that whole conversation. But if you want to support the band, that would be huge if you bought the record, because it's crazy how much work goes into, this little like plastic disc that has 13 songs on it, and it's also crazy to me because I know how much work it took. I mean, it's 2 years in the making. It's crazy. You can work so hard on something, and all you got to do is, like, you can download it illegally or play it on Spotify for, like, $0. But it's not a money thing. It's more so, like, this is what kind of keeps our band rolling. It's kind of like the lifeblood of any band nowadays is to show that you can show that you can still sell records in this crazy market where everything's available at your fingertips. So, yeah. So hopefully people don't see that as, like, us asking for money, but more so just asking for, like, if you enjoy what we're doing, like, we love it, and we love being able to give that to people, and that's the way that you can help us just keep doing that. That's all it is. It's more or less like a partnership.
Right.
A record label invests in us to put out a record, and we see our fans as investing in us to help us keep doing it, you know? So, yeah, if you're into it and you can afford it, pick it up. We'd appreciate it.
Besides, diapers cost money, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, man, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Congratulations again on the twins. That's awesome. I hope to see you out on the road sometime.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
We're waiting for a better day. The shadow's gone, all things pass away. Listen close and hear it say, we're just and we're tired.
That was my interview with Wolves at the Gate vocalist Stephen Cobucci. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate the time that they put in, and let me tell you that this album was really fun to talk about. Hey, one of the things that we talked about really stuck out to me was about the parables that Jesus told. You know, and those kind of things that he gave us were a great tool that made it so relatable for us to understand our relationship, not only with God, but with each other. And so that's one thing that I'm continually thankful for, especially in this Thanksgiving season. So that's one of the things that really stuck out with that conversation. That's really cool to me. If you like music that's told from the first person narrative, kind of in like a story form like that, or heck, if you just like good old metal, you need to check out this album by Wolves of the Gate. It's called Types and Shadows. I would definitely say that it is one of my personal favorite albums of the year as far as that genre is concerned. Look, we don't like to review albums as a part of the DCT podcast because I think too often people will hear that someone might not really particularly care for a record, and so that they just don't listen to it because of that. We want you to make your own opinions on it, and that's why we don't like to review albums. But I would say, you know, this is one that's probably worth checking out, especially if you are into that genre. Hey guys, I really like to say thank you so much for listening. I actually got to meet the drummer from Wolves of the Gate a couple weeks ago. I didn't even know it at the time. He was actually on the road with Project 86. We'll have more on that in a future podcast, specifically with Project 86. But the next podcast is actually going to be next week. We usually take a week off in between podcasts, but because we're trying to get in a couple episodes before the Christmas holiday, before we take some time off for the Christmas holiday, we got a special bonus podcast next week with KJ52, a Christian hip hop veteran. He's got a pledge campaign going on right now for his 11th project. Its name is Jonah. It's one of those, hey, KJ52's been around a while. The guy's got a lot of wisdom when it comes to just hip-hop, and not only that, but just responding to different kinds of things. And so that's going to be an interesting conversation to listen to. I would encourage you to check that out next week. Even if you're not a fan of hip-hop, I think the conversation in and of itself is worth checking out. If you are a fan of hip-hop, and if you are a fan of KJ52, in the meantime, go to pledgemusic.com/KJ52 and check out that album. While you're there, slip on to iTunes and go check out the Wolves at the Gates' new album, Types and Shadows. Like the interview said, buy the album. It would really help out the artist. These guys just had twins, for crying out loud. Like I said, man, diapers cost money. I would know. So check that out. Also, hey, while you're online, go to decentchristiantalk.com. Check out the right-hand side of the page. There's a donate button. If you can, give us a couple bucks. That'll help us cover some of the costs that it is to make this podcast. Once again, we're still working on getting our Patreon page up. I know nobody's donated there yet. It's under construction, but if you want to check that out, it's patreon.com/decentchristiantalk. That's patreon.com/decentchristiantalk. You can also check us out on Twitter. That's DC Talk Act 2. That's DC Talk ACT and the number 2. And hey guys, we started a kind of a discussion group on Facebook. We just started that about a week ago. Got a little over 50 people in there right now. So we're just kind of getting started out. We really want that to be kind of a place where people can go talk about music and other things involving Christianity. Yeah, check that out. And you guys, hey, listen, Thanksgiving is this week. I know not everybody that listens to this podcast is from the United States, but everybody that listens to this podcast probably has something to be thankful for. So let's think about that in this next couple of days. A lot of times when we pray to God, we kind of ask, selfishly, sometimes we'll end up asking God for this and for that. But let's take a minute to reflect on what God has given us, and especially the life that He's given us, the abundant life that He's given us. Let's be thankful of that this season, and hey, love others the way that God loved you. Hey guys, thanks for checking this out. Next time we got KJ52. But for now, we'll see you later. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.
My skinny boy,